engineering,
medicine,
chemistry,
physics,
biology, humanities, cardiology,
computing, public health, global
science communication.
Hello everyone, I'm Gareth Mitchell. Today, a festival flavour as we drop in on the most recent Imperial Fringe event and preview this year's Imperial Festival, including drumming, science and performance.
We came up with the idea of having drummers play along to an actual piece of music, and then you take that music away but ask the drummers to keep going. And the question is how able are they to keep the beat?
And away from the festival, one of our researchers is tackling the 800,000-year-old mystery of a 20-kilometre wide crater.
The Imperial College Podcast.
Right, well, let's start with some news headlines. And we've got reptile news. Hayley Dunning, what's going on here?
Yes, Gareth. Did you know that there is a turtle that can breathe through its genitals?
No way. I know it now. I kind of want to unknow it, but tempt me further with this story.
It's a pretty special skill, and actually this is part of a story that looks at reptiles that are evolutionarily unique but also threatened with extinction. So we're used to kind of lists of animals that are threatened with extinction, but this is a little bit special in that it also considers how unique they are on the evolutionary tree. So on the tree of life, there are some branches that branched off a long time ago. So this turtle, it's a Mary River turtle, branched off from any other ancestors about 40 million years ago. That means if it goes extinct, we basically lose this whole branch of the tree.
And does it have any other special, remarkable traits?
Well, you'd love to look up a picture of this cute guy because he also grows this great punk moss hairstyle on his head. But obviously these all have a purpose, so breathing through its genitals underwater means that it can stay submerged for up to 3 days, whereas a lot of other reptiles would have to come to the surface to breathe.
What else is on this list?
So we've got some interesting animals on this list. There's a minute leaf chameleon, which is one of the world's smallest lizard, grows only 3 centimetres in length, found in Madagascar. There's a snake called the round island keel-scaled boa. It's the sole surviving member of its family and just found in one island off Mauritius, but it has this amazing ability to change the colour of its skin. In just 24 hours, it can change the colour of its skin to blend in or change its jaw structure to eat different things. And staying on snakes, the last one of my favourite ones is the Madagascar blind snake, which is a tiny pink worm-like snake that's lost its eyes and spends its life burrowing through sandy soil instead.
Which all goes to show what incredible adaptations so many creatures have. Is that the main part of the list? And I suppose what's the kind of main message from all this?
So the list is part of a series of lists created by the Zoological Society of London in their EDGE programme, which stands for Evolutionarily Distinct and Globally Endangered. So they've done it for a few other classes of wildlife as well, like mammals. But this is their reptiles list, and it was curated by Ricky Gums, who is a PhD student between ZSL and us here at Imperial College London.
Okay, Hayley, thank you for that. Andrew Youngson is in the studio, and my goodness, Andrew, are we looking forward to the end of April, last weekend of April, the Imperial Festival?
Yeah, believe it or not, it is that time of year again. It is now Imperial Festival 2018, so there's a huge amount going on as ever. There's about 150 exhibits happening at the festival across 9 zones, but bring it back a little bit, what is Imperial Festival? It's the opportunity for members of the public to go behind the scenes and explore the latest research and innovations from Imperial through interactive demonstrations, workshops and live experiments. So to give you a flavour of some of the new elements this year coming are a showcase of technological marvels to celebrate the Year of Engineering, a new hands-on zone for families, and talks from world-leading thinkers and doers.
Wow, so lots of new stuff going on, Andrew. So are there any particular gems that you're excited about?
Sure. So, I mean, there's always a really good array of robotics on display, which are, huge crowd pleasers. So, for example, you'll be able to play air hockey and fetch with Robot De Niro, our friendly robot that people who have been at the festival before will know, with his top hat and lovely red colouring. There's also an opportunity to play games purely with your brain power as well, and also compose music even with your brain power. So bring your thoughts with you, everybody. But on a slightly more serious side, there's also an exploration of just what London does to our health. But then back to the fun side of things, and we'll be hearing about this later in the podcast, is a Science of Drumming exhibit. I'll just leave it there and you'll find out more later.
But it's not just science, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, creativity and culture are also going to be really at the forefront of the festival with, live musical and dance and theatrical performances and an exhibition exploring the boundaries between medicine and the arts. And besides that, there's also a whole load of delicious food from some of the city's best street food vendors. So something for everyone.
And the main thing is, it is free to get into. Who doesn't love a free event? So how can people find out more?
Sure, so it is best to go onto our website. So that is www.imperial.ac.uk/festival. And keep the dates in mind. It is Saturday the 28th and Sunday the 29th of April. See you there.
So save the date, won't you, everybody? That's the last weekend of April. You have to be there. It's the Imperial Festival. Andrew Youngson, thanks very much. Okay, now, one evening, 150 years of invention. The Imperial Fringe is always inventive, but the most recent one was all about invention. It was an opportunity to power through a century and a half of innovation here, from life-saving ideas to the latest in startups. To explore the past, present and future of innovation and discovery at Imperial, we sent our two intrepid reporters to the Fringe.
Hi, I'm Bridie and I'm here with Rachel at the Imperial College Fringe event.
The theme of this month's Fringe event is Invention Dimension, and we're going to go and speak to some of the researchers involved.
I'm Kevin Brown, Trust Archivist at Imperial College Healthcare and curator of the Fleming Museum.
And what's your display tonight?
We've got a selection of items dealing with the beginning of the antibiotic age in medicine. So we've got Fleming's microscope, we've got a penicillin plate, some early penicillin, a lifesaver. We'd like people to come and see the museum where it all started.
And where is that museum?
St Mary's Hospital, Paddington.
I'm Nate, I'm a mechanical engineer, final year here at Imperial.
Tell me a little bit more about your affordable bionic arms.
We founded a company called MIT. You can find us on www.wearmit.com. But the basic premise is prosthetic limbs at the moment are really bad. They're really uncomfortable. They're bafflingly expensive, as in tens of thousands of pounds. And they're not even functional in everyday use. So what we're doing is simple. We're just kind of obsessed with the idea of talking to actual people with limb loss and saying, hey, what do you want? And building products that they actually like. So we've got a bunch of prosthetic arms that are super comfortable, focused on doing specific tasks really, really well, really functionally, and aren't a ridiculous price. They're actually affordable for regular people.
Have you developed all these arms yourself?
I have, yes. Very Tony Stark of me. We have to, by necessity, focus on simplicity, which is good because that keeps the cost low, and it just makes better, more elegant products that are less likely to break and that people enjoy.
Hi, my name's Bushra Burge, and I have my own studio experimenting and doing multisensory stories.
And tell me a little bit more about the Great Wave and what you're doing tonight.
Okay, the Great Wave is a multisensory story with garments you wear while you watch a VR story about the sea and actually plastic in the sea. And we recently got an EU grant to move it forward as well, which is great.
Great, thank you so much.
My name is Saif Osmani and I'm a visual artist and spatial designer. Tonight we're doing a workshop here called Moving, the Science Behind the Colour, and it's all based around the colour mauve. Mauve was the first synthetic colour discovered by William Perkins in 1856, and it was all by accident. He was clearing out a beaker and he just saw a very bright purple at the bottom of it, and that was a sign and the beginning of the synthetic colour movement. And this year is 180th year since his birth. So a lot of people here are expected to interpret a lot of the iconography and imagery coming out from William Perkins' archive, and there's essentially a celebration of Moby.
Okay, if you could just introduce yourself for me.
My name is Mohit Devgan and I'm a co-founder of Quick Count. I'm currently a PhD student at Imperial College London.
And tell me a little bit about your project and what you're trying to do.
So we're trying to create a quick, easy, portable test that costs £1, can do the test under 1 minute to diagnose if a patient needs antibiotics or not.
How does this differ to current kind of methods that are on the market?
So currently the quickest test that can be done is 12 minutes and the cheapest test is £15. This is not readily available in GP offices at the moment.
So why is antibiotic resistance so important to explore?
Because currently antibiotic resistance is causing up to 25,000 deaths a year in Europe alone. And by 2050, the World Health Organization has predicted 50 million deaths a year and a £66 trillion cost every year if we don't do anything about this at the moment.
I'm Matt Wells, and I'm a third-year PhD student here.
Tell me a little bit more about Click.
Well, we've noticed, as I'm sure your listeners have, that there are quite significant queues at all of the food outlets on campus around lunchtimes. And we thought we can actually address this quite simply. If instead of having to go to the stores to actually buy your food in person, if you could order online beforehand through an app, and then just go, scan your QR code, and collect your food in an instant.
So what are your aims of this project?
Well, firstly, we're hoping we can actually relieve some of the workload on the staff at the food vendors. So rather than having to prepare thousands of meals bang on lunchtime, they can actually spread their workload through the morning. And as well, we're hoping to be able to offer people a greater variety of food, help them explore things they maybe haven't tried before, and of course, skip the queue.
That's great, thank you so much.
That report from Bridie Kennelly and Rachel Kahn at the most recent Invention Dimension Imperial Fringe. And in order for there to be a fringe, there needs to be a main festival for the fringe to be on the fringes of. So roll on the last weekend of April and, of course, the Imperial Festival, as we've been hearing. On show, science, engineering, business and health, alongside all that food, performance, demonstrations and family fun. There's even going to be a chance this year to try out your drumming skills as part of a live experiment to analyse performance. This is the exhibit by the Centre for Performance Science. Caroline Brogan has been treated to a very rhythmical sneak preview.
Hi, can you tell me your name and what you do?
I'm George Waddell. I'm a research associate in the Centre for Performance Science. We're a partnership of the Royal College of Music and Imperial College London, and we look at the science of performance.
In a nutshell, what is this Science of Drumming exhibit at the Imperial Festival?
Well, we wanted to give festival goers a couple different ways into our world. Drumming is something that we can all kind of relate to. Almost everyone, if not everyone, can tap out a beat of some kind. So it's a really good way to get people engaged in the practice of actually performing something. So we're going to be looking at performance from both a cognitive and motor skills standpoint, but also from a health and well-being standpoint.
And what are the specific activities and experiments at the exhibit?
So we've got two activities. The first one we're calling Drum for Your Life, and here we're going to have 3 electronic drum kits set up that anyone can come and have a bash at. It doesn't matter if you've ever played the drums before. We'll have people drum along to a very high tempo piece of music. So we know that as adults we're recommended to get 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise. So this isn't doing any kind of extreme sports. This is really going for a brisk walk or maybe a mild cycle, just something that gets the heart going, gets you breathing a bit heavily. So the idea of this event is to show that drumming can be another way to get this kind of activity and really maintain your health in a way that's a bit more fun and a bit more engaging than other things. We know that the best exercise is the exercise that you'll actually do. So if going for a walk isn't your thing, then maybe picking up the sticks might be.
Well, now I'm about to have a go on the other experiment. Can you take me through that?
So this experiment we're calling Beat It. And here we wanted to look at more of the cognitive and the motor skills side of drumming. It was really interesting coming up with this one because it was proposed to us by David Hawkins, who's the head of percussion at Royal College of Music. And he wanted an event at his percussion festival where people could actually sit down at a drum kit and do something, but at the same time be a proper scientific study. So we had the challenge of designing something that really targeted how people perform and how people drum, but also really represented something that musicians do in their actual practice. So we came up with the idea of having drummers play along to an actual piece of music, and then you take that music away but ask the drummers to keep going. And the question is how able are they to keep the beat?
Well, we'll see, George. Thank you very much.
Pretty close. Now, do you think that you sped up or slowed down?
Sped up.
You slowed down.
Good.
And the really interesting thing is that when we did this with drummers of a whole variety of experience levels, they mostly slowed down. But when I asked them after, did you speed up or slow down? Most of them couldn't tell me, or very confidently told me the wrong answer. So it's not just that these very experienced drummers often weren't able to keep the beat. They were slowing, which contradicts a lot of the literature when you look at these kind of tests where people tend to speed up if you're just getting them to tap maybe one finger to a metronome. For some reason, in this situation, people tend to slow down. A drummer with 22 years of experience will also slow down, will also struggle to hold that beat. So we're not implying that these drummers are bad drummers. We're trying to highlight this and develop tools that will let musicians really refine this very particular skill, because we found that there was actually no relationship between how much experience people had and how good they were at this particular task.
Yes, finding out all about drumming. That is Caroline Brogan reporting. Right now then, Hayley Dunning is back in the studio, and Hayley, we're going to have a go at solving an 800,000-year-old mystery. Or maybe we're not personally going to solve that mystery, but we're going to find out about it, aren't we? What's this?
Yeah, so what do you do if you've lost a meteorite crater? Where do you look? Surprisingly, the answer might be Antarctica. I spoke to Dr. Matthew Genge, who's a senior lecturer for Earth and Planetary Sciences, who told me why.
Well, actually, this is all rather embarrassing because science has lost rather a large impact crater. We know it should be there because covering Australia are these tiny little glass beads about marble size called tektites. And we can date them. We know they're 800,000 years old, and we know they come from the impact of an asteroid or comet with the Earth. But the crater, which should be around 20 kilometres in size, is nowhere to be found.
So how can you lose a crater?
Well, the Earth is a very active place. The Earth's surface changes by metres in a very short period of time. So over 800,000 years, you could cover up a crater, for example, in a delta.
So now you've got some new evidence that might point you towards where the crater is. What have you found?
We were looking in Antarctica for meteorites, and this is actually a part of an expedition that goes every year, run by the US Antarctic program. That year we came back with 800 meteorites. I was also looking for cosmic dust there, because it's very clean in Antarctica. It's very easy to find the dust. And we found these tiny little, and by tiny I mean about the width of a human hair, tiny little glass spherules, yellow beads. And they have a very similar composition to these larger glass marbles that you find in Australia, which tells us they come from the same impact. And their composition is slightly different. So they appear to be heated to higher temperature, and they contain much fewer gas bubbles. And this suggests that they started off much closer to the point of impact, and they were ejected faster. So these are the most distant debris from the impact. Now what's really cool is because they've been heated more, it means that you can find the crater in kind of a hot or colder game. And we've all played this when we were kids, am I closer to it? Am I hotter or colder? But in this case, the hotter you are, the further you are from the crater. So if we can find these beads in lots of different places, the colder those beads get, the closer we become to the crater.
Now you have a direction to look in. Do you know where the crater might be?
A lot of people think, and data is certainly consistent with this, and our data is too, that it's somewhere in Southeast Asia, quite possibly in Vietnam under the Mekong Delta, which is a really thick pile of mud and sand. So finding that crater really involves looking underground, using seismic waves in a very similar way that we look for oil and gas.
Why is it important to find craters? Why is it something we want to find?
There's lots of reasons to be interested in impact cratering. Most of the processes that occur on the Earth, things that control where the land surface is, how life evolves, are related to our planet, how our planet works. Impacts are an exterior control, so impacts can produce mass extinctions. They can result in 50% of life on Earth just suddenly disappearing, which probably actually accelerates evolution. Now, of course, on our planet, well, that's already happened. But what we're kind of interested in is if we see a planet in a planetary system that has lots of asteroids, does that mean that life has evolved quicker on those planets, if there is life there? Or are there so many asteroids that life is stopped in its tracks and never evolves to become significantly complex?
Going back to the crater that you're looking for, what kind of impact would an asteroid that size have had on the Earth?
that kind of size, so 20 kilometres across, size of the asteroid's probably going to be around about a kilometre or so. That's kind of at the threshold where it has a global consequences. So if something like that happened today, it would have a really significant effect on our species. It's not big enough to cause a huge mass extinction. So if we go back to the KT impact where the dinosaurs died out, there are a whole load of species who died out. So it's around 45% of species. So a 1 kilometre size asteroid is certainly enough to give the human race big problems, but not the planet.
Take us back 800,000 years to Vietnam. What would we see if we were standing there when this asteroid was coming towards us?
It would be a very memorable event, although memorable for a very short period of time. An object of that size, it comes through the atmosphere as if the atmosphere almost isn't there. There would be a very bright fireball producing an immense shockwave. And as the moment it touches the ground, it starts releasing huge amounts of energy. If you are close to that event, that's going to cook you. The shockwave from the event would expand outwards, losing energy as it goes, but could probably knock over a brick wall at 100 kilometres. The debris that you would see flying up into the air, and it would arc up in a great curtain that slowly falls back down to Earth. Just imagine the land suddenly expanding upwards into the sky as high as you can see, and then falling back down towards you. That would probably extend out to around 200 kilometres from the crater. That's an unimaginable destructive event that dwarfs even the largest volcanic eruptions.
That's Matt Genge talking to Hayley Dunning and rounding off this edition of the podcast. And I know we've mentioned it a few times already, but let's do it one more time. The Imperial Festival. You have to be there. It's at the end of April. It's the last weekend of April. All the details, imperial.ac.uk/festival. And, of course, festival or no festival, there's plenty of news going on around the college. And as ever, you can catch up with all the goings on via our news website. That's imperial.ac.uk/news. Well, I'm Gareth Mitchell, and thank you very much for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.